why so many of the hydrants in the Palisades ran out of water, Governor Newsom said the local folks are trying to figure that out. Yeah, you got to do that before the fire. California is the place that spends money and gets nothing, which is why you may have noticed when the fires broke out, no one escaped by high-speed rail. Am I against a lesbian being chief? Of course not. Do I think a lesbian can do the job? Of course I do. And maybe she's the best person for the job. Or maybe they really wanted a lesbian in that job, and she's just the best lesbian for the job. And with essential services, that's not good enough.
Gavin Newsom was just burned by Bill Maher, and no one anticipated it. Maher has often supported Newsom for president, so it's no secret that he is an ardent supporter. People were shocked when Maher viciously ridiculed one of his signature laws in addition to calling him out. It was harsh, brutal, and surgical. So hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and let's get started. California just enacted a legislation requiring.
California just passed a law requiring large retailers to have a non-gendered toy section. A non-gendered toy section? Isn't Ken enough? We need a law for that? You have to inject yourselves into everything, from where you can throw a frisbee to who can braid hair? This is why so many people, by the way, were triggered by COVID policies. They were already sick of rules. Regulation should be a good issue for Democrats. It's certainly one they're associated with. And I think the average voter would agree that banks and chemical plants and drug companies need watching. Telling a company, you can't dump the waste from your hog farm straight into the water supply. We're mostly all for...
You're correct. The mandate for a non-gendered toy section was approved under Newsom's California administration, and while it may seem reasonable on paper, it quickly became controversial. When Bill Maher addressed it, he mocked the idea by bringing up Ken, Barbie's Ken, to highlight what he saw as its absurdity. Using kids' toys to point out government overreach, Maher turned it into a sharp criticism of California's growing regulations rather than just a light joke.
Democrats have become a parody of themselves, just making rules to make rules because it makes you feel like you're a better person. Making sure that everything bad never happens again, which you can never fully do. It just makes everyone else's life a drag.
In this instance, Maher is addressing Newsom directly, and his message is rather pointed. Maher contends that excessive regulation actively stifles the California dream and turns daily life into a draining, soul-crushing drag in addition to causing annoyance. He makes a valid point. Nowadays, if you try to obtain a permit for anything in California, you'll soon find yourself engulfed in a maze of paperwork, red tape, and bureaucratic obstacles that seem to be intended to wear you down. Every obstacle you have to overcome has a cost, costing regular Californians both valuable time and hard-earned cash. Approvals, costs, and annoying delays turn what should be a simple process into a months-long nightmare. Maher has obviously had enough, living smack in the middle of it. Political commentary is no longer present. At his governor's door, this Californian is expressing his genuine frustration.
Democrats no longer possess the common sense to understand that not every problem in the world can be fixed with a regulation. But don't tell that to the advocacy groups who also want every future car in America to only start when the driver blows into a breathalyzer. Oh great, my other car is a...
Maher doesn't directly name Newsom here, but the target is obvious. His core point highlights what he sees as a growing blind spot. The belief that every social issue needs a regulatory fix, more laws, more mandates, more control. While the push for a non-gendered toy section may come from a sincere desire to promote inclusion, Maher argues that good intentions don't always justify strict legislation. In his view, tolerance is better achieved through education, cultural awareness, and open dialogue, not government mandates, which should be a last resort, not the first.
Why so many of the hydrants in the Palisades ran out of water, Governor Newsom said the local folks are trying to figure that out. Yeah, you got to do that before the fire. At least in the Palisades, the hydrants were still there. 300 other ones around the city are just gone, stolen for parts. One of the 3 reservoirs for the Palisades was offline at the one time of year when it was most needed. LA's Mayor Karen Bass, the Nero of American politics, was fiddling in Ghana while the city burned and later placed the blame on 8 months of negligible rain and winds that have not been seen in LA in at least 14 years.
Newsom, in this view, seems more focused on regulating toy store aisles than tackling California's real crises, like the devastating wildfires that have destroyed communities such as Pacific Palisades and left families with nothing. Maher highlights the irony. Despite a mountain of regulations, one of the state's most serious and recurring threats remains unresolved. His argument centers on priorities. Why not channel that same regulatory energy into life-saving measures, like addressing outdated power lines linked to major fires? Instead of adding more laws or increasing taxes, the focus, he suggests, should be on using existing resources more effectively and taking real action where it matters most.
Power lines keep causing fires and keep not getting buried underground because it's expensive. I've heard people say, do you want to pay more taxes to fund this? No. I want to use the exorbitant taxes you already collect to prioritize it.
Here's where it goes from being bothersome to being quite astounding. Prepare yourself for this. You won't believe why the power lines that presented a documented, obvious, and perhaps fatal threat to Californian towns weren't buried. Authorities concluded that putting them underground might disrupt the milk vetch's natural environment. Critical infrastructural decisions that impacted billions of dollars worth of property and California residents ultimately took precedence over a little, unnoticed plant. Take a time to marinate in that absurd truth. This is the most blatant example yet of how drastically misguided California's priorities have become under Newsom's direction. It appears that a herb took precedence over public safety, family homes, entire communities, and everything else when a real life-or-death decision had to be taken. Their regulatory system produced the result, not because they had to.
Power lines that cut through Topanga weren't upgraded because it endangered an herb, the milk vetch, which sounds like something they serve at Passover. I mean, talk about not seeing the forest for the trees. You know what the absolute worst thing for the environment is? Wildfires. A 22 study found that the smoke from just the two in 2020 wiped out 18 years of carbon reduction in the state, which means we suffered the pain of driving those early model Priuses for nothing.
Maher's argument, as framed here, is that despite California's constant stream of new laws and regulations, everyday life for many residents hasn't improved, and in some cases feels worse. Issues like natural disasters, traffic safety, crime concerns, and homelessness continue to challenge the state, while major cities such as San Francisco and Los Angeles face visible strains. The criticism centers on a perceived gap between policymaking and real-world results, suggesting that simply adding more rules isn't enough without effective implementation, clear priorities, and measurable outcomes.
It's the place that spends money and gets nothing, which is why you may have noticed when the fires broke out, no one escaped by high-speed rail. We have the highest marginal tax rate in America, higher than almost all other states, and soon Greenland. What is included for that? Breadsticks? Because it clearly doesn't cover fire. That's government's job. Protect us from crime, violence, theft, fire. I'm not saying Alabama would have done better with fires by fighting them with prayer in school. But look me in the eye and tell me anyone could have done worse.
Maher raises a blunt point, questioning whether leadership appointments, like Los Angeles Fire Chief Kristen Crowley, are based purely on merit or influenced by broader diversity goals, arguing that even the presence of doubt can be concerning when public safety is involved. His broader criticism is that while diversity and inclusion efforts may come from positive intentions, they shouldn't overshadow qualifications in critical roles. The takeaway he pushes is that competence must remain the top priority, especially in positions where decisions directly impact lives and communities.
The news is our fire chief is a lesbian. Am I against a lesbian being chief? Of course not. Do I think a lesbian can do the job? Of course I do. And maybe she's the best person for the job. Or maybe they really wanted a lesbian in that job, and she's just the best lesbian for the job, and with essential services, that's not good enough. Crowley's official bio says Chief Crowley leads a diverse department, creating, supporting, and promoting a culture that values diversity, inclusion, and equity while striving to meet and exceed the expectations of the communities. Well, you didn't exceed my expectations, which was that the whole city wouldn't burn down. But it's telling that diversity is mentioned.
Bill Maher, a longtime Democrat and vocal California insider, appears fed up, arguing that the state is prioritizing performative policies over real-world problems. He contrasts issues like non-gendered toy sections and symbolic measures with urgent crises such as wildfires, economic strain, and public safety, suggesting that resources and attention are being misdirected. His message is blunt. Leadership should focus on outcomes that protect people's lives and communities, not just pass more laws. And with that, we wrap up today's video. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and stay tuned for more.